Welcome to this afternoon's session, Supporting the Innovation Capacity of Higher Education Institutions in Europe, New Action by the EIT. It's based on the European Commission's proposal for the EIT Strategic Innovation Agenda 2021 to 2027, which is currently under negotiation by the European institutions. Today, we'll discuss the EIT's new actions to support higher education institutions in Europe. This session on higher education and yesterday's session on regional innovation launched the EIT Stakeholder Forum 2020, a platform for EIT stakeholders to learn about EIT activities and to have a say in EIT's future work as an integral part of Horizon Europe. On September the 30th and November the 15th, EIT will launch 3 online consultations: EIT Regional Innovation Scheme post-2020, New EIT Action to support the innovation capacity of higher education institutions, and EIT Community Open and Inclusive. You'll be using Slido today. You're probably familiar with this now. It's at the bottom of your screen. Please send us questions from now all the way through to near the end of the session. We'll put those to our panelists as best we can later on. And also we'll have an open question for our audience to respond to on Slido. So please don't wait. Send your questions now and our team will choose some of those to go to the panel later on. Now, let me just welcome Martin Herzog. He's the EIT Head of Strategy and Impact. Martin, good to see you today. Floor is yours, sir.
Hello. Thanks for the kickoff, Brian, and thanks everyone for turning into this exciting event. This is indeed a fantastic opportunity to discuss how we can work together to help Europe's higher education institutions to become more entrepreneurial and innovative. I'm Martin Herzog, Head of Strategy and Impact at the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, the EIT, and it's my pleasure to be here with you all and start a discussion. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. The EIT is Europe's largest innovation ecosystem, and our community is made up of over 2,000 partners working across 60 hubs in Europe and beyond. We unite business, research and education in knowledge and innovation communities, or KICs, as you might know. Our 8 KICs focus on issues that matter to Europeans: climate change, renewable energy, digital transformation, urban mobility, raw materials, smart manufacturing, food and health. Our KICs help innovators to turn their ideas into cutting-edge products, services and jobs. They educate the next generation of entrepreneurs, nourish ventures through business creation and acceleration services, and empower smart solutions to Europe's greatest challenges. To next slide, please. Speaking about our results, our success is already unmistakable. Over the past decade, our community has supported more than 3,200 ventures, created over 1,107 products and services, generated more than 13,000 jobs, and raised over 3.3 billion euro of external investment, as you can see here. We are delivering on key EU policy priorities. During 2014 and 19, our innovation communities spent over 700 million on climate action-related programs, a strong foundation for the EIT's role in the realization of the European Green Deal. The EIT has been also quick to respond to the COVID pandemic, the current pandemic. Technology now helps us to be together, although we cannot meet in person. But as part of our crisis response initiative, we have been mobilizing 60 million euro to provide immediate relief to over 200 vulnerable businesses and support rapid response projects in over 30 countries that combat the effects of pandemic. Just one example very quickly is a product called Sequad by a fixed laboratory in Finland as part of EIT raw materials program. They are producing now an antiviral clear coat, which is developed to kill viruses, bacteria, but also including coronavirus, the pathogen of COVID-19. And this coating is able to resist thousands of touches and create an active layer that is self-sanitizing within minutes, and it lasts for a very long time. So it can be used for many different purposes in public transportation and other commonly used areas. When we speak about the future of the EIT, I need to mention that we are set to grow stronger over the coming years. The European Commission proposal gave mandates and the budget for the EIT as a part of the new Horizon Europe program. EU co-legislators are now negotiating the EIT's future. In July 2019, the European Commission presented the Parliament and the Council with the EIT legislative package, including the updated legal framework and the strategy for the EIT, which will determine our future direction. The negotiations, as you may know, will likely wrap up by the end of 2020. We have an ambitious agenda for the coming years, and our Strategic Innovation Agenda for 2021-2027 lays out 3 priority areas. One is increasing our regional impact. Second, boosting our support to higher education. And 3, to launch 2 new knowledge and innovation communities. The European Commission proposed the creation of a new EIT KIC for culture and creative industries. EIT Culture and Creativity will bring together Europe's culture creative leaders from business, research and education to create a pan-European innovation ecosystem. One of the biggest priorities post-2020 will be the support of Europe's higher education institutions. This will build on a well-established entrepreneurial education programs and experience. Next slide, please. Thank you. So speaking about higher education, the EIT is based on a unique model that integrates education alongside with business and research into thriving innovation ecosystem. And education is often a missing link in traditional research business partnerships. And our innovation communities have developed a wide range of cutting-edge education programs, such as double degrees, mobility experiences, applied courses, all focused on delivering entrepreneurship and innovation skills. And these programs are based on partnerships amongst universities, companies, and research centers. Some numbers. We have over 60 EIT-labeled master and doctoral programs delivered by our community. To date, we have more than 3,000 students who have graduated from these programs. Over 200 universities across Europe are already active members of our network. And through our massive open online and other online education activities, we have already engaged over 100,000 learners. Next slide, please. Thank you. The EIT awards the EIT label to the most excellent education programs created by the KICs. And EIT labeled programs are unique. They're made up of the following pieces: innovative activities, entrepreneurial education, learning by doing curricula, industry engagement, and international mobility. Our graduates join the EIT alumni community. This community brings together innovators from across countries and sectors who have taken part in our education and acceleration programs. It's a critical piece of our continuous support for living innovative ecosystems. We already have over 10,000 members of this community. Next slide, please. Higher education institutions, or HEIs, play a critical role in the innovation process. And while some HEIs are becoming more innovative and integrating into innovation value chains, many are not well equipped for the innovation age and falling behind leaders in the United States or China. As laid out in our Strategic Innovation Agenda, we plan to launch a new action to boost the innovation capacity of European higher education. We will empower these institutions to become more innovative, entrepreneurial, and competitive on the global stage. So we'll integrate a wider number of higher education institutions into innovation value chains and ecosystems. We'll build on successful policy initiatives such as HE Innovate and the RIA framework. Some of you might be familiar with these. We'll steer and coordinate the implementation and monitoring of these new activities that are inclusive, intersectoral, and that resonate with the other EIT priorities. Support inclusive education by extending the EIT label, which is given to the EIT KICS education programs, as I've mentioned, and to many HEIs that will participate into this action. So linked to this, I mean, you can see we have a fantastic group of panelists today, both from academia and industry, who each have a lot to say about how we can support innovation and education across Europe. Dr. Véronique Père-Dereau is a professor of robotics and vice president of Europe at Sorbonne University in Paris. She's been deeply involved in EIT Health since its creation in 2015, including as the KICS Education Director for France until 2018. Véronique will talk a bit about her experience with the EIT and our community's strong links to higher education. But before I pass the floor to Veronique, I would like to invite all of you joining us today to participate in the stakeholder consultation that Brian has mentioned at the end of this month about the EIT's new action to support higher education. I can't stress enough how important it is to hear your views on how we can help Europe's universities to become more innovative and successful. Thank you very much. Veronique, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm very happy to share my experience within the KICs, I would say several KICs. I started my journey, as you say, the creation of EIT Health. I was asked to represent French partners at the Education Strategic Board. I could not imagine at that time how many meetings I will attend afterwards and how much I would be committed. And in fact, it was very exciting. So first of all, as you say, I was a member of the Education Board, and we had many interesting discussions with other partner representatives to build a strong portfolio with a large spectrum of training programs with many different formats and addressing many publics, not only the students, but also employees in companies or even the general public. And all those programs were, of course, containing the state-of-the-art knowledge, but they were supposed to consider the market and the end users' needs. And that was pretty new for me at that time. And I was very happy to diversify in the collaboration with other partners. But as I'm a professor in charge of an international master program, I dedicated a bit more my time on labeling degrees. You talked about that, Martin. Indeed, EIT is awarding a label to programs introducing a certain level of entrepreneurship and innovation education. So we had to work with partners and engage also partners in collaborating and building new programs, not from scratch, but organizing them so that they can share some additional components and make students travel across countries and also across organizations. And we got a very positive feedback from our students. They consider it's a real added value in their curriculum vitae. They are a lot more prepared to deliver innovation, and they consider that they are key actors for a change in the future. Then I became education director for French partners. So I had some further discussions. I had to engage the community into education programs at large. So here I like very much to interact with very diverse actors, not only from academia, but also from companies, global or very small ones, and also to interact with public, any other public organizations. And I liked also to build synergies between education activities and also between activities from the other pillars like innovation projects or business ventures. Since January 2018, I'm Vice President for Europe at Sorbonne University. Sorbonne University is a member of 3 KICs, not only health, but also digital and climate. And this is part of my portfolio to supervise the activities our community is running within the KICs. And I really engage them to be part of this endeavor. I'm really a great supporter of EIT because I consider that the activities are fully in line with the missions of universities. That is, we are not just, well, not just is not probably the proper word, but this is not about research and education only. We also have to deliver innovation and service to society. So there is a kind of resonance between the EIT strategy and our own strategy. So as a conclusion, I'd like to say that being so much engaged in EIT activities is very rewarding as a partner. But I think that this kind of engagement is also needed by the KICs to develop, because they should not become a funding agency. They will be better equipped with the expertise of their partners and the networking that partners can bring to amplify, in fact, the innovation that the KICs are supposed to develop to society.
Thank you, Veronique. Amplify, I think that's a good summary of just what you said. We'll come back to that a little bit later on. For those of you watching in the comfort of your homes, you can check down to the Slido at the bottom of your screen. And we're going to open this question for all the audience. So please send your responses to this, and we'll have some discussion this later on. So the question today is, why are European higher education institutions underperforming in innovation capacity and falling behind leaders in the United States and China? So your answers to that, please. Also, for the Q&A as well, please send in whatever questions you want to put to our panelists. Please keep them as concise as possible, and we'll put those to the panel a little bit later on as well. So please keep sending those, and I'll remind you a little bit later on as well. Now we're going to come to a discussion part with our panel. The discussion today is on strengthening the innovation capacity of higher education institutions in Europe. Let me give you a brief introduction to our panel today. We have Dr. Patrick Prendergast, Provost of Trinity College Dublin, just south of where I come from. Good to see you today, Patrick. We also have Carlos Rich, Strategy Officer and Director of International Division of Atlantic Copper. Great to have you also with us today, Carlos. And Dr. Janusz Janczykowicz, he's the head of the Centre for Medical Education and Medical University of Lodz, and the one whose name I was most likely to get wrong today. Good to have you with us as well, Janusz. So Patrick, you're going to kick off. Each of our panelists has 4 minutes to speak. I will give them a very polite reminder at 4 minutes to wrap up. They'll have an extra 15 seconds, and then I'll ask them to close, move to the next speaker. Then we'll come back for a bit more time for Q&A afterwards. So Patrick, 4 minutes, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks very much, Brian, and to answer the question that you posed.
Yes. Let me just read it for our audience there. From your experience, including as a former member of the EIT Governing Board, how do you think that the European higher education institutions perform in terms of innovation capacity, and what unique contribution can the EIT community make to boost innovation capacity at HEIs?
Well, I think the performance of European universities is variable. There are some places where it's absolutely excellent, world-beating in many respects, and others where it's not. So I think the variable nature of how European universities and higher education institutions perform is an important thing to recognise, and to not beat ourselves up too much by saying that we're losing out all the time to the United States and China. We do have examples of best practice in Europe in many of our universities. And many member states. My own university, Trinity College, does quite well, ranked first in Europe for the education of entrepreneurs, according to the venture capital research firm PitchBook. But there's not many universities. KU Leuven is obviously an excellent one, University of Copenhagen, several German universities. And I think that there's quite a degree of good experience within European universities about how to achieve in innovation and entrepreneurship. But it's probably true to say that it's not as integral to the mission or the raison d'etre of many European universities as it might be in some of the universities in the USA and China. Education and research is seen as the mission, and it's absolutely important that we educate our students, of course, to a high level and do research that makes impact. But to make that impact, we do need to have also the third part of this system, which is innovation and entrepreneurship. And I think European universities can do more in this, and that's why the new initiative from the EIT for building innovation capacity in European HEIs is so important. We can do more with the incubator spaces for students and undergraduate students even to start companies. We here in Trinity College Dublin, but several other European universities have had success with this. And I think the EIT would like to see this become far more prevalent in Europe. We need to also make it easier for academic faculty to take their innovations out into the market and keep the security of their tenure as well, taking leaves of absence and so on to participate in the innovation economy. And indeed to allow them to reap the financial rewards of the success of their companies if they do become successful. That we shouldn't shy away from that. And I think the good example that a very successful faculty member or student can make in entrepreneurship motivates others to try and do it as well. So in conclusion, I think that there's great capacity for learning within the European system, universities learning from each other and learning from the success that the KICs have had in implementing the knowledge triangle. And it's this creating a learning space in Europe for innovation entrepreneurship that the new initiative by the EIT for building innovation capacity in higher education institutions, that's what it's all about.
Patrick.
So Brian, you didn't have to stop me. I stopped myself.
I think you're the first Irishman in history who didn't run over his time. Thanks so much, Patrick. I will come back to you a little later on so you can store up whatever else you have to say. We're getting great response on the active poll as well, so keep sending in your responses there. I'll come back to those in a few minutes and read them out. This is the best response we've had in the 2 days. And we have Carlos Rich next as well. Carlos, as an industry representative, what is your experience working with academic partners, and how can higher education become more innovative and responsive to the needs of industry?
Thank you, Brian, and thank you also to the EIT for inviting us to participate in this very important discussion. Before answering the question, Brian, can I just quickly say some brief words about Atlantic Copper? We're a Spanish company belonging to the leading North American natural resource company, Freeport-McMoRan, and we produce high-grade refined copper and sulfuric acid from ore mined in various parts of the world. To do this, we run a world-class, highly efficient copper smelter and refinery in the port of Huelva, southwest Spain, which annually processes around 1 million tons of ore to produce 300,000 tons of refined copper. We employ indirect employment is around 3,000 jobs. Now, in Atlantic Copper, we feel that innovation is one of the main driving tools to reach true sustainability. And our innovation capacity is based on knowledge. And as such, we dedicate important resources to R&D projects to generate the required knowledge. Now, in this sense, we have worked in close conjunction on R&D projects with many national and overseas universities. However, recently we are preferentially trying to channel our university research activities through our local university in Huelva, specifically through the metallurgical studies program that we, Atlantic Copper, sponsor. Incidentally, over the last 5 years, we've spent some 700,000 euros on R&D projects under this program. Now, as part of our talent management, we're fully aware that we need to promote our own internal innovation capacity. So rather than contracting R&D through the universities, we're now using postgraduates to run specific R&D projects as part of their respective master's or doctoral studies. Currently, we have 3 postgraduates completing their industrial PhDs on site, 2 from the University of Huelva and 1 from the University of Seville. In order to help the higher education institutions in developing the innovation talent that we as industrial players require, we are proactively taking our industry back to the academia through the industrial PhDs that I mentioned, also through our sponsored metallurgical student programs that we run in 3 different universities in Spain. And also we have vocational training and internship. We're actually very proud of our Atlantic Copper student training program at the universities, which is more than a program. They're more like institutions in their own right. The specialized metallurgy program that we sponsor at the School of Mines in the Technical University of Madrid has been running since 2014. An average of 40 students a year attend the courses, which gives some 19 lectures a year, many of which are actually given by Atlantic Copper staff members, field trips, grants, year-end prizes. We have our own lecture theatre. The programme has received support from the EIT Raw Materials and will also form part of the SUMA Masters programme that hopefully will also be funded by the EIT Raw Materials. As I mentioned, we also sponsor 2 similar institutional metallurgical programs in the Huelva and the Andalusia International University. Technical students also need hands-on experience as part of their tuition, and in this case, we're working closely with the local polytechnic colleges, and we have 4 dual vocational training courses running at the moment. There are other means of closing the gap between the industry and the academia. Last year, for example, we Atlantic Copper pioneered and hosted the EIT Raw Materials Company Challenge, which was a great success. And we're also going to participate in the Race 2020, which is EIT Raw Materials Global and Digital Raw and Circular Economy Expedition. Finally, I should mention our annual internship program, which we normally would take some 50 students each summer. However, this year, due to the COVID-19, the number has actually been much lower. I think to wrap up, really, I would like to say that in order to innovate, you must have knowledge. And knowledge is obtained by really understanding the fundamentals of our processes and that of the industry. Back to you, Brian.
Excellent. Everybody's right on time today. Thank you so much, Carlos. Great. Leave us more time for discussion later as well. No pressure, Janusz. So we still got questions coming in and responses to the question which we posed. So please keep sending those. I'm going to close just after Janusz speaks as well. So it's your last chance to respond to the question. And please send us as many questions for our panel as possible. We'll put those to them in a few moments as well. Janusz, you have 4 minutes. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I'm just starting my stopwatch, so just not to exceed 4 minutes. So my theme is how the COVID-19 crisis affects or influences innovation in higher education and what should be our response. It's a really fundamental question, more for a long workshop or a lecture in 4 minutes. I think we all agree that the current situation affects higher education at all levels, from individual learners and teachers, affecting their well-being, safety, and mental health through social interactions at interpersonal level. We need to develop new ways of communication to institutional, organizational, inter-organizational levels, which are something we are discussing, in fact, today. You may know that education is perceived as so-called complex adaptive system, and COVID really shook the system, and we need to find the new balance. During our discussions in the international community of higher education, people often project what's going on at the moment on the very well-known Kubler-Ross model at all the levels mentioned by me. So we need just strategies to adjust to this new normal. And I would like to draw your attention to a few factors. There is a very old but still good and valid theory developed by Vygotsky about the zone of proximal development, that people learn when they are on the edge of their personal comfort zone and when they have good support. So now many people were pushed much farther and they have no support. So we need to provide them with effective support. We need to provide them with guidance and effective mentoring. And I think it's just signposting of which direction our innovations should develop. Then, of course, we all experience sudden shift towards digital health, digital education, and digitalization in general. And we need to be very sensitive to avoid enhancing the digital divide, also in education. We need to be, another issue is that we need to be aware of the dangers of biases of technical and digital communication that's now dominating in our discussions, in our discourse. So back to the digital divide. There are many people who are alone disadvantaged, vulnerable, people from marginalized populations, and we need to be very careful not to lose them if our innovations are not sensitive. So I would suggest using the term inclusive innovations. And we need, as a consequence, we need to focus our efforts on innovations in the area of interpersonal, intercultural competence, and even in developing empathy and professional values. This especially is important for health workforce in the era when we teach using distance learning, teaching and learning methods. So innovation is not equal to technical innovation only. We strongly need this humane aspect of innovation in education. We need transformational leadership. We need adaptive leadership. And I really like the quote that the magic ingredient in any adaptive change management is trust, and we should intentionally continue to develop our trust networks. People need to be informed and people need to be involved So this is about co-leadership in education. People need to feel they are co-owners of this sudden change process. So one of the questions we have received before the conference, what about the differences between universities across Europe? And I think that this crisis gives the perfect opportunity to make the good use of the common in-group identity model, which means we have the common goal, which is overcoming the crisis. So there is the chance from transformations from us and them, from transformation of different universities to one perfectly working together team of educators. Thank you.
Perfect, right on 4 minutes. Thank you to all our panelists for sticking to time. It means we've got a bit more time for discussion now as well. Okay, so let's close our poll. And let me read some of these responses for you. So, all structures not open to change their approach to teaching and functioning of HEIs. They do not support entrepreneurial spirit. Speaking as a researcher and lecturer of materials science in Germany, my perspective is that we underperform because social responsibility, soft skills and critical thinking are not taught or supported in higher education. Lack of recognition of entrepreneurship, competences to access and progress. Please don't flick that through quite so quickly, I can't read it. If we were to criticize, I'd say rigid structures, traditionality, bureaucracy and less money are the problem, and need to dedicate time and money for innovation for researchers and their facilities. And thank you for that. Panel, any quick response to that? One more. The question is wrong. Why China managed to raise so much in the past 2 decades? Let's start with that. Why did China seemingly get this right faster, and why are we seemingly playing catch up? Who wants to take that? Carlos.
On China, that's a difficult one. I would prefer to bounce that back to the academia rather than.
Very well, Veronique.
Well, I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that. It's a very difficult question.
Very well. Then let's put finally to Patrick. Patrick, Trinity has come out first in this in terms of entrepreneurial skills. Okay, you live in as well. You also mentioned some other German universities. You've got some strength in this field, but why is China seen to be so far ahead? Is it really?
I don't think it really is, in fact. And I've been there many times, of course, and in many universities in China, and I think there's a lot that they can learn from us. Perhaps there's more adaptability in the university governance structures there, and I notice some of your questions are about this and blaming bureaucracy and the old traditional nature of many European universities, and we certainly have much older universities. I'm sitting here in a university that's 429 years old. Sorbonne is, I don't know how many, it's 1,000 years old. So we do have probably older structures and very democratic ways of electing deans and faculty representatives and so on. And this can seem constraining, but we really got to do something about this. And I think it is something where national governments and EU can do something to unfreeze some of the kind of bureaucracy that slows European universities.
Well, you're in a pretty good position to be able to do something about it. So what would you like your colleagues to do? And what would your recommendations to them be?
Well, I've been doing this job as a president of a university for 10 years, so I've done all the things that I want to do, more or less. And I think university rectors need to be elected based on their drive for pushing innovation and entrepreneurship, not solely on their brilliant academic publications. Those are the kind of things that can change what's going on.
Thank you. We've got some questions coming in here. Let me put these to you. If you want to answer this question, shout out, otherwise I'll push it to you. There are several initiatives directed towards students, EIT, KICS, COST, universities. How will the EC improve, or you, improve synergies? Martin? How can synergies be improved?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. There are several initiatives directed towards students, such as EIT KICS, COST, European universities, Erasmus. How will the Commission improve synergies? How will EIT improve synergies?
All right, very clear. So thank you for repeating. Basically, in the Strategic Innovation Agenda of the EIT, building synergies to such instruments is one key target that we have to achieve. And we have already built several bridges to the instruments that actually you have named here. I can get back to the alumni community that I've mentioned with over 10,000 members we have already. And I also have to remind about the particular characteristics of EIT labeled courses, for example, in terms of mobility, which is also another logical link where I think we need to seek and build synergies with other instruments around education, but also on innovation as well.
Okay, thank you. Janusz, this question is for you, I think. You spoke about trust networks. So Bernd from the European Campus asked, can also transnational university alliances such as borders and regions benefit from EIT offers? What would you recommend? What's your starting point here?
Well, my starting point is it's a little bit a technical question, how we can go beyond Europe, but I think it's the trust networks are absolutely fundamental. What we say in leadership in education, not only in education, is that we need oxytocin-based bonds and not adrenaline-based bonds. The stress doesn't work well for a long time. But I think the main issue, the key issue is to understand what is the purpose of our innovation. So my understanding is that it's not innovation for innovation, it's innovation for the benefits of the society. So as we were a while ago discussing students, how to address this issue, I think we need to involve the real stakeholders very strongly from the very beginning of the discourse. So instead of telling people, here is the offer for you, for the students, for international universities, we need to bring them to the discussion as partners from the very beginning. Instead of telling people what they need, because we cannot know it, we need to ask people what they need, and then we need to involve them at all levels of development of all our projects. So again, we are coming to this, that we must be very interprofessional and we must be very inclusive in everything we do.
Okay, Veronica, you would, I presume, agree with this more human-centric approach to what needs to be done. In your university, are you listening to what people want in terms of innovation, and are you taking a more market-oriented approach in this respect?
I think so. We are now in a way of creating a new innovation center, and we'll have all the key actors in the same place. And that's the idea, in fact, to answer the key questions from the society. And in fact, taking into account those questions is quite easy in the various EIT programs we are running at the university, because there are some challenges or our summer schools, many different formats of training activities where, in fact, the world outside the university can come and raise some problems, and our students will consider those questions and develop their projects.
Okay, thank you. Carlos, what kind of resources are lacking to engage innovation capacity in universities? What kind of resources are needed?
Well, yeah, I was also, and it's linked with
Sure.
your question on the poll. One of the comments came through about the soft activities. I think that's something very important, that graduates have a better understanding of the culture, the business cultures of different companies, of other activities such as change management, communication, global vision, European world policies. All the business integration in our field of raw materials, the changing role of raw materials in society. This kind of soft backup it's not just a technical, in our case, a technical tuition or education. I think it also needs to be accompanied by those soft learning cycles.
Okay, Patrick, Janusz was speaking about the transformational leadership elements and the COVID response, this communitarian sentiment that's needed as well. Do you see a shift towards a more cooperative approach between universities, even more so than before COVID? Has COVID changed any of these dynamics for cooperation?
I think it has. I think it's changed a lot about how universities work internally. We're offering now 80% of our teaching online and only 20% in person. So, and I think it's very similar in other universities in Ireland, and I suspect around Europe as well. So our fundamental activity of education is changing. Also, an interesting thing has happened. The importance of research in solving societal problems has come very much to the fore in people's minds. the vaccine, when it's found, will be found by PhD researchers working in collaboratively between industry laboratories and universities. So this has put an emphasis on the importance that universities serve, important role they have in society. And I think that is one thing that COVID, if we were to find a silver lining in this cloud of COVID, that it could be it. And of course, the only way to get those ideas to market is through innovation and entrepreneurship and collaboration between universities and industry. So I think it has put a real laser-like focus on the importance of innovation and how that's linked to what goes on in universities.
Let me put this to Martin then. Martin, has COVID given EIT a new platform to emphasise these trust networks, this transformational leadership and this communitarian approach to innovation?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned a couple of examples of how we had to respond very quickly. Basically, both on operational aspects, several aspects Patrick has also mentioned, simply, with absence of travels and putting all our activities basically online, both in terms of planning and conducting events, online events like this one, for example, but also in terms of how we respond. So, I mean, the example I gave on the crisis response initiative EIT made, we have done that just literally in a matter of weeks, cooperating with our innovation communities. And basically, the power of this biggest innovation network we have fully functional in Europe now, totally interconnected, has demonstrated that the knowledge triangle, as we call it, is possible to be mobilized and bring along several extremely good ideas. And of course, one of the key learnings for us is not only these operational aspects, but also the way how we will probably try to steer the activities we have way more short-term responses also to other emerging policy priorities, for example.
Thank you. Just a quick question to Janusz, then I want to give you something each to jump off before we wrap up. How does the traditional recognition of research conflict with entrepreneurship and talking about publications, citations? You talked about the unsustainability of adrenaline rushes in academia. So how does this conflict with entrepreneurship, Janusz?
I would say it doesn't. It's not all about research. It's just generally about academia. There are many people who are not used to innovations in education and innovation in research. And I would like to make a reference to what Patrick said about the old, well-established universities. I think it doesn't make the situation easier. And this may be also part of the answer about for the question about why China is so successful. Because for those well-established institutions, very often people prefer to rely on their routine expertise as this is safe from their perspective. And many people are influenced by it's called Freudian illusion of central position, that the current situation is appropriate, so let's don't change it. Let's only fix small issues if they appear. And this is just the way to a spectacular collapse. So we need to change this, and we need to find this, it's called adaptability corridor between pure innovation and pure effectiveness, that our research and our innovation are both working together for the optimal outcomes.
Okay, thank you. Can't beat a bit of Freud before lunch. Now, you're going to have 20 seconds each just to respond to this as well. So, words I pulled out: trust networks, amplify, synergy, digital, human-centric approach, transformational leadership, and common goals. Veronique, you have 20 seconds, literally. What do you want to see in terms of boosting, strengthening capacity?
I think we really have to continue this collaboration, because it's part of the answer, this EIT network. And I think we have to strengthen the collaboration between partners, because it's facilitated when we are a member of a network.
Thank you. Carlos?
Yes, I think we should be concentrating always on closing the gap between academia and the industry, and activities within EIT raw materials really help with that.
Thank you. Patrick?
I would like to see the new EIT Action for building innovation capacity in European higher education institutions take off. I think that is an immediate thing we can do to achieve the goal of greater innovation capability in Europe.
Okay, 10 seconds, Janusz.
Okay, if 10 seconds only, I would say that for me, the key is involving the real stakeholders from the very beginning of the innovation process, that we are sure that we are going towards the right direction that will benefit them.
Super. Now let me just remind you, I think we have it up on screen now as well, that the online consultations open 30th September to November the 15th. EIT Regional Innovation Scheme post-2020, EIT Action and EIT Community Open and Inclusive. Thank you to all our panellists for an excellent discussion today. Thank you for your excellent questions online as well. I'm Brian Maguire. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Brian.